For the fifth year in a row, Ontario has beaten its deficit target. The final figure for 2013-14 is $1.3 billion lower than was projected in the 2013 budget. And it's $800 million lower than the interim projections in the 2014 budget.
Well, maybe Charles Sousa has a hard time adding up numbers or projecting things, but let's get to Christina Blizzard, Queen's Park columnist, for a little bit more on this, because that number was pretty interesting, the $1.3 billion lower than the 2013 budget projection.
Yeah, because they borrowed from reserves, $800 million. So that's like, taking money out of your savings account to pay off your line of credit. This is not exactly genius math. And he compared, he said, well, the Ontario has the best record of any province. Well, just about every other province is in not in the red. They're in the black. They're doing very well. The only other province with a significant deficit at this point is Quebec. So who wants to be compared to that? So I think there's a little bit of a shell game going on here, Pat.
Well, and it's interesting. I went through the press releases that came out from the province, the first thing they mentioned, strong management of expenses and the use of $1 billion reserve that you were referencing more than offset the decline in revenue. And the second point was the decline in revenue, 2013-14, almost $1 billion.
How can that be? This is the government that gave itself a massive tax hike when they combined, when we got the HST, that came in, that was projected to bring in about, I think, $4 billion once fully implemented. This is the government that brought in the massive, so-called healthcare levy, which was another one of the biggest tax hikes in the history of the province. So, what is going wrong here? How can revenues be that far down when all they have done is increase taxes? It's stunning, really.
Well, and never mind, as I went through it, then I also saw that non-tax revenue being included in this, including the sale of the shares of General Motors Corporation, the rescue funds that were invested in the corporation and then obviously now recovered.
Yeah, now those are doing very well. I think also what we're going to be seeing will be the sale of assets. In fact, Charles Sousa did reference that. I mean, I'm not sure that that's a good way to pay off your deficit by selling off assets, because once they're gone, how are you going to balance the books then? It's there are a lot of questions about this, and these are very serious times, but no one really seems to care. I mean, we just had an election where the debt and the deficit were front and center, and really voters don't care. So long as they've got their full-day kindergarten and all these very expensive programs, they don't care how far we go into debt.
I don't have a big problem with realizing on assets. So you take LCBO, for instance. You sell off the LCBO, the chain per se. You sell off the buildings and the contracts and all those kinds of things, and you take in a huge whack of dough. But you're always going to tax the liquor that's being sold, whether it's through the LCBO or anybody else. So you always have revenue coming in from that particular sin stock. And that can be true of anything else, including lotteries.
Well, yeah, exactly. That is true. But once you sell off these assets to pay down the debt, you still got the same kind of expenses coming in year after year. So, I'm not quite sure how you pay that off. Excuse me.
Yeah, you're struggling there a little bit. Get a little glass of water. We look at these numbers. The other side of these things is that economic growth has been moribund in Ontario, and it's referenced loosely in this particular document. But it's worse than people actually think out there, is my suspicion.
Well, I think that. Sorry.
Yeah, because if you look at the numbers overall, he talks about provincial program spending has been lower than forecast each year since the fall of 2009. They're not putting money into creating jobs and the kinds of things that the infrastructure in particular that the federal level has been doing.
Well, yeah, exactly. And at the same time, they have been wasting a lot of money. We saw that with the $1.1 billion it cost to scrap the gas plants. We saw that with the hundreds of millions that went down the drain with Orange. So this is a government that has not been very careful with the taxpayers' money. At the same time, they are asking the feds over and over again for more money. Well, you know, if you're not managing your money well, you're not likely to get more from the feds.
Yeah. I was also looking at the debt levels in the province of Ontario, and yes, they're down, but the debt to GDP ratio sitting at 38.6% at the end of fiscal 2013-14. That's compared to the 39.3% back when it was forecast in the 2013 budget. But their target is 27%, and their target, as far as balancing the budget is concerned, is only 2 years away, 2017-18.
Well, I think, Pat, they're going to be counting a lot on the U.S. economy coming back, because of that, of course, will help a lot. So I think that is the thing that will save them. And I think at the end of the day, when we go to the election in 2017, 2018, they will just, if they haven't balanced the books, they'll simply throw up their hands and say, well, we couldn't do it. And frankly, the track record has shown that voters don't care. They want their expensive programs. They don't care how to pay for it. I mean, in the Mike Harris years, in those times, people really cared about how much this province was in debt, and they watched it very carefully. Now they clearly don't.